And I believe we are live. We already got people commenting. So everybody out there, this is a new session. I didn't get an intro done yet, but I have waiting in the wings Mr. Tim Mikloiche, who we are going to do. Mr. Tim Mikloiche, welcome, buddy.
Hey, Tom. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I haven't seen you in a while.
There was a delay. I was like, oh, what happened?
Oh.
You're good. Well, welcome.
Okay, good. Thanks, buddy. It's a great to be here. I'm glad we talked about this. It was something we talked about a while ago, and I'm glad we're finally doing it.
We sure did. And I'll tell you what, I was telling everybody earlier that we came up with the idea for the shocking truth, or you came up with it, because you called me, you were like, hey, I got an idea. And you're like a ball of excitement, right? But we had a good discussion, and it was a good idea. So I'm just looking to see. All right, so we are evening. Okay, so I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. Good evening. I don't know if you can't see this, but can you see the comments? This is the first time we've tried this. I don't know if you
I
can
can
see.
see. Yeah, I say hello to all from Laurel and Omaha.
Excellent, perfect. So Steve is on myths that I can think of. One, the ground is true zero potential. Two, that if peak let through is less than SCCR, then a circular fuse automatically protects. And three, that SPDs protect from direct lightning. Oh, this is perfect. This is what we wanted. Steve says, and good evening to you, David. We got David on. And every qualified person should know better. David Engelhardt says, good evening. We got Laurel on and Freddie B. Excellent.
All right.
So, Mr. Mikloiche. So we had this idea for let me just do whoops, hold on. I got to get you back so I can see you. Oh, wait, I can see you over there. All right, so, but I do need this. All right, so I'm going to throw up. I have the logo, and I sent you that PowerPoint, right? So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to try something. There it is. All right, it worked out good, but I got two logos on there. So I've got the shocking truth. Actually, I should do, it doesn't matter. So we have the shocking truth, and we had a list of questions, right? The first one, do you want to take a look at the first one?
Yes. Yeah, that's the one. Now, can everybody see it except for me? So you guys can see it, right?
Wait a second. First, you have to introduce yourself. You are Mr. Tim Mikloiche, so why don't we let you have your time in the limelight?
Well, thanks, Tom. Yeah, my name's Tim Mikloiche. Known Tom for quite a while. I started in the trades as an electrician, electrical apprentice, went up through the trades, became a contractor, like most of us, switched after a period of time, went into being an inspector, and joined IAEI, which is a great thing to do. That's kind of how I met Tom. Tom and I kind of connect on different occasions, and we do some videos, and it's great to work with Tom, and it's also a great resource to network with a bunch of people, and for the electrical safety and for electrical, the passion of that. It's great, Tom, because when I see people, we can put our differences aside, we can work together for a common goal of electrical safety. I love stuff like this. Education is key, and since I've been an inspector for going on 25 years now, I was in the field for 10 years, been an inspector for a period of time. I kind of see how both ways go, right? So when you're a contractor, you're trying to get the job done. When you're an inspector, you're kind of trying to focus on the safety, where sometimes contractors want to just get the job done. So I feel that as an inspector, having a contractor background, I can help educate as we look for compliance. And again, I have a passion for the electrical industry. I love working with you and a bunch of other people. And I can't tell you how I think IAEI has helped me evolve and be able to do that and network with a bunch of people. So in a nutshell, I'm just an electrician and love
You're
electrical
just
stuff.
you're just the average guy.
That was just the average guy. Yes.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you made a good point that the IAEI gives us that umbrella where we can all work together with one common goal, which is to increase safety, and it gives us a thing to rally around, right? So we have all when you have a common interest, you got good friends. So all
Absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
Eli
Like
is.
minds.
We can get started now. Eli Markovich is in the house, so now we can get started. So the first one, in fact, this first topic was the first one that you sent me. Remember?
Right.
And it's okay to use NM cable outside in a conduit if you strip the jacket off.
Right. Right.
Ooh.
So, so the story behind this one in my situation was, a common installation for us is AC units and the condensers outside. So typically the electrician runs the NM cable to the disconnect on the outside of the building, the residence, the house, whatever it may be. And then they know that they can't run NM cable outside. Article 334, 334.12 doesn't allow NM cable or Romex, like we call it, to be used in wet or damp locations. So what they do is they take the jacket off of it. So they take the NM cable, basically that's going in the whip from the disconnect over to the condenser, and they strip the jacket off and then pull the conductors inside the jacket. So that's kind of what started this whole thing because I started seeing that a lot. And I said, wow, it's got to be, why is this happening so much? Let me talk to Tom about it. And that's kind of what kicked us off on this journey. Can you have naked Romex? Is that okay if I have individual
Oh,
conductors?
naked Romex. I never heard anybody call it
Yeah.
that before. Okay,
So
so
that's kind of how we started.
that's how we started. Now the question would be now, okay, so here's I guess where's my glasses? The journey, right? The journey that we would have if you are presented with a question like this, which okay, there it is. Couldn't find my glasses. So when you're presented with a question like this, the skills in navigating the code are critical, right? So we know we're dealing with
Absolutely.
NM cable, NM wire, and we know we're putting it in a raceway. So then to determine whether or not it's okay to use NM cable outside in a conduit if you strip the jacket off, I'm thinking you'd go to chapter 3. Is that right?
You would, yeah. And I mean, and that's one of the things about it is the code. I mean, there's so many different avenues to get to one point, and there's sometimes so many different sections that cover one question, right? We have the listing of the NM cable, we have the 300, the location of it, we have the actual NM cable Article 334 itself. Where do you start? And so to your point, Tom, I guess I would start like I'm running NM cable and I'm outside. So conductors outside, I would look up Article 300 probably to start.
Okay, so you'd start in 300?
I did here in this case, but you can go to 334 first, maybe even 110.3b listing
Ooh.
and labeling. There's so many different ways because there's probably at least 3 or 4 code sections that would apply, and I'm probably missing some.
Yeah, no, and you know what? NM cable is in chapter 3. What's the article number for NM cable?
Article 334.
330. I'm not questioning you. Non-metallic sheath cable. So 330, that's what I would go to 334. And then you're
Yeah.
saying in chapter 3, 300 is general requirements
Well,
for
yeah, let's start
wire.
in 334.
Okay, 334.
Let's
Let
start
me
at
go to.
334. I think that's the best place to start because we have NM cable. So let's figure out where we can use it and where we can't use it.
Okay, so 334. I'm opening. I don't know about you, but I've got the 2023 edition of the. Look at that. Yours.
You know,
Hold on. You're an inspector, and yours looks like brand new. Mine looks like it's freaking used.
Wait a minute. In all fairness, I have multiple copies.
Oh, okay.
They're,
Okay.
they're in different locations.
In
This is the
different
home
locations.
copy.
Oh, up,
You know what?
up. Sorry.
You know what, Tommy? That's another thing too that's funny is we just wrapped up the 2026, right?
Yeah.
Edition of the NEC. Connecticut is in the 2020 NEC. When we do stuff together or I do stuff nationally, we use the 2023 NEC. So it's multiple editions of the code sometimes that you wrap your head around and you're like, okay, what book am I? Where am I? What
Oh,
changed?
yeah. And all I know is my NFPA link is always fresh and new.
I love Link. I love Link.
Laurel says .12 uses not permitted in chapter 3. So 334.12 uses
Yeah.
not permitted. I guess I would
Yeah, and
probably, to her
actually
point,
it would be 334.
go ahead. Yep.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, she mentioned it right there. 334.12b4. Yep.
So it says type NM cables shall not be used under the following conditions. I'm going to see if I can bring that up. I'm going to search on NFPA link. 334.12. All, boy, there it is. B, type NM cable. There it is. All right. A. There we go. So I should be able to do this. I don't have my buttons both with screen. Let me just try that. There it is. All right. So 334.12, it says type NM cables shall not be used under the following conditions: where exposed to corrosive fumes or vapors, where embedded in masonry, in shallow chase in masonry concrete, and then in a wet or damp location.
Yeah.
But you stripped
So again,
off.
that's like
You stripped off the sheath.
well, and that's the thing, Tom. Yeah, so that's the point. That's where people start there and like, okay, well, I can't run NM cable outside or in damp and wet locations, so I'll take the jacket off of it and I have the individual conductors now.
Right.
And I think in the comments we have some Steve Speckler, Article 110.3, Section 110.3b. Correct. Yeah, the testing and listing of the cable, which I don't have UL. I believe it's 719, Tom. I think we talked about this, about the listing of labeling of the cables
Yep.
and the individual marking of the conductors.
So the conductors that are inside NM cable are not. What would be the one for TH? Was it THWN? For
Correct. Yeah. THW for wet
wet
location.
location, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so the conductors that are inside of NM cable are not THWN, is what we're saying.
That's yes, and they're not individually marked.
And
So really,
they're
we
not.
have a cable.
Okay.
So we have, like I said, we have so many code sections with this one part here that's we don't have individually marked conductors. We have THHN conductors, not THWN, which that's another issue. So we
Right.
start with 334, and we can go in different directions.
Okay. So now David Engelhart is saying 310.8. 310.
Yeah, there's the marking of the conductor. Correct, David.
Okay, man. All right. So we were in was it 330? I can't remember the numbers. 330.
We're in 334.
334. That's where it told us we can't put it in a wet location. Okay. But then the pushback was, well, I took the outer sheath off and I put the conductors in, and then you're saying 310.8 has 310.8. Where is it? 310.8 marking has the marking requirement, but you're saying that when you strip off that outer sheath on NM, the conductors inside are not marked.
Correct. And it's listed as a cable assembly.
It's listed.
So I mean, you could almost end. Yeah, you could almost end the conversation there. But if you dug a little deeper and we went into Article 300, we can clear it up a little more and hit some other sections. And there was a little change made to 300.9. So
Ooh,
you
what
can still hear
cycle
me,
was
right?
that made?
It was made into 2023. So the minor little change to 300.9, I don't know if you could bring that up.
I'm looking for it right now. Hold on.
It,
Keep talking.
I mean, it was such a minor change. It really didn't change the intent, but it just goes to show that it sometimes it's hard to write good code, right? 300.9 said conductors above grade, and it was above grade was one word. So when you see the change in the 2023 in your hard copy book or in Link, you'll see the little minor change from above grade one word to above grade two words. It was
Okay.
such a minor change. Didn't change anything. It was just so minor. But again, sometimes it's hard to write good code, and you don't use verbiage correctly. That was identified by one of the astute code members at one of the public inputs, addressed and said, "Hey, above grade is actually two words." So we did a minor little change to 300.9, but
Okay.
that's where you'll see conductors outside above grader in a wet location. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you could bring that up on the screen.
I got 300.9 up where it says raceways in wet locations above grade. And when this is
Yeah,
what you would use, this is what you would use to say, look, it's above, it's a wet location. So whatever conductors are in there have to be listed for a wet location. And NM wire as an assembly is not listed for a wet location. You can't use it. We saw that in 336. No, not 336.
334. Used to be
334.
336, couple cycles ago.
Yeah, see, I that
Yeah.
that that's my excuse. So in 334 tells us, to Laurel's point, you can't put it in a wet location. So the raceway would be a wet location, and then if you take the outer sheath off, the conductors inside, because it's an assembly, the conductors inside aren't labeled per 310.8. So you violate
Mhm.
that, and then even if they were labeled, they're probably not THWN because they would have to be THWN.
Correct, correct. And that would go back to the UL standard for the NM cable,
And
which
that's a
I believe is
110.3b.
719.
That's 110.3b.
110.3b, right. Which, as an inspector, I mean, that seems to be a fallback, and I really don't like to fall back on 110.3b, but it's one of those important sections that if we're going to talk about that too. If you have something that's listed and labeled, you have to install it for its listing and labeling. So it's kind of a catch-all, but it's definitely an important section. Just as
Yep.
long as 110.3a is also important.
110.3a.
Yeah, that's
Is that the
also important. We
Canadian?
could we
Is
could
that the
talk about that
Canadian?
another
Is that the Canadian version?
day. Yeah, yeah. Hey,
Eh? 110.3, eh? All right. So Steve says it's a listed cable assembly, but they would try to say the conductors were individually marked meeting 310.8, but still is outside the listing to strip the sheath. And actually, it's very similar to going into a piece of switchgear and drilling holes, and
Mhm.
you're modifying a listed product.
Correct, correct. And I mean, for a while we did. I think the last UL White book, actual book I still have. I think it's the 2014.
I
I
know.
just love the UL White book because again, they talk about drilling enclosures and bus bars inside that, and that was one of the things I learned when I became an inspector because that's one of the things we did. If we didn't have a position or whatever, we would drill, put lugs on, and do what we needed to do. And yeah,
All right. So what we're saying is, for the question of, let me get you back again. I've got to get this. I got to get better at this. For the question of, let me get Felix off of there. I got Felix says
yeah.
it's
While you're doing
not.
that, Joe,
Huh?
go ahead. I was just gonna, yeah. Felix is not without its external jacket. Correct. I was gonna say, Joe Ballard has a great point. The dot 10 uses permitted and dot 12 uses not permitted. That's the parallel numbering system, Joe. That was a great thing, and I love the parallel numbering system. Although you can get the right answer from the wrong section sometimes because we kind of with the parallel numbering system we might be in IMC instead of EMT, or uses permitted or dot 10 and all throughout. So the parallel number system is great. That dot 10 and dot 12 is pretty consistent through chapter 3. So it's really helpful to get you around in the book. I
Uh,
liked when they did that change.
Absolutely. And then Steve says 110.3 is highly important to adhere to manufacturer's instructions. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now they
yeah,
did make a
yeah. I
change
agree.
in the,
I agree.
they're trying to draw in 2026. In the 2026 code, not only where they ended up on, they were looking at trying to address that a manufacturer's instructions cannot reduce the the level of requirements, right?
Yeah, I don't know where
So
that ended up either. I wanted to talk to you about that one.
I will. You know what? Let's take a look at second draft. I know we're on a little bit of a tangent, but NFPA.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to have to look at you looking at the second draft.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I like when you're looking at me. So just remember, focus right here. Focus. All right. So I'm going to go to NFPA link and take a look at 110.3. Not NFPA link. NFPA. What do they call this? TerraView. All right. So 110.3b. It says such instructions shall result in an installation and use that complies with the requirements within this code. So you can't. I know.
Did it fix it?
You know what? I liked what they did in the first draft better, and then they changed it in the second draft. I don't know, but that's what
Yeah.
they ended up with.
All right. And again, like you said, not to get off a tangent, but I mean, we could spend a whole day on that 110.3b and the installation instructions. And I guess a lot of it falls back to like GFI protection for certain pieces of equipment that are located in areas that would require GFI protection is kind of one of the concerns that I hear a lot
Yeah.
about it.
Now,
So,
the other question from Felix is inside NM cable, what kind of cover are on the wires? THW, THWN, THHN? And that's the issue, Felix. We don't know.
well, and it's funny. I think if we had UL 719 or maybe even UL 83, I think inside there, they say that the conductors are THHN, but I honestly think they're combination rated, but they're not identified as that.
All right. So
Do you
UL,
have that UL standard now?
I'll get it. What was the number?
I think it's 719.
719. Standard for non-metallic sheathed cables, cables. Okay, I've got to go to. I use SCCL, so I went to the wrong one first. 719. Take the 4 out. All right, standard for non-metallic sheathed cables. I'm going to download the PDF, and we're going to take a look. All right, it's on Rev 13. I don't know where it went. Where's my PDF? There it is. All right, so so I'm going to move that over there. I got to take care of my coffee. Okay. Let's do a maximize. And conductors. 4.3 is conductors. It says type NMC cable is required to comply with flame. NM cable is required to comply with flame. Conductors. Only soft annealed copper shall be used. It says a copper
You're
conductor
close.
shall not be smaller than 14. I'm looking to see where it might say. It doesn't say what the insulation should be. Let me do a Control F. I want to look for TH. Oh boy, you don't want to search for TH.
No.
THH. Oh, for type NM and type NMC cables, the insulation material shall be dry locations PVC that complies with the requirements. Oh man. Oh, look at this. You ready?
Is that where UL 83? Is there another UL that's tied to that somehow?
I'm not sure, but I'm just going to do this. There's what it says. It says type NM or type NMC cable. The insulation material shall be a dry locations PVC that complies with the requirements for type THHN insulation without any surface marking of the ampacity or temperature rating, right? And that's the issue that we just said in 3. Don't tell me 300.10 or
No, close. 310.8.
310.8. I knew there was an 8. I'm like, why don't I have the 8 in there? 310.8 optional. The tensile strength and elongation, physical properties from type TFN. Okay, so it says table in. Oh, wait, that's UL 1581. It mentions NM cable again. THHN electrically comparable to the PV insulation in type THHN. So it that hopefully that answers Felix's question. Oh boy, we're getting a bunch of questions. Gotta take that out. Jason Doty says, hey Jason, good to see you, buddy. 334.120 part 3 deals with the construction of the cable. It states it's a 90-degree conductor. Yeah, it's 90 degree. And Jason, the other issue that we had a conversation was that it's not marked. And we don't know if it's wet location, dry location. And so, and that's what Felix was asking. So we pulled up the standard, and the standard tells us that it is for dry location and it's not permitted to be marked with any information. Because to Tim's point, it's an assembly. And that's what took us over to 110.3.
Right.
Problem el solved. Yeah. Okay. Car charge. David Engelhardt talked about change. Well, we're going to go to our next question, and David, we'll put the GFCI on one there later. The paper component in NM is what keeps it out of wet locations as it holds the moisture. But also, Steve, the insulation on the conductors is not qualified for a wet location. Freddie B says, not just holds water, but will wick it. Oh, wick it. You know, that was a good play. Did you see Wicked? Wicken?
I did not.
Yeah, it was a good play. All right. So
somehow I missed your call, Tom. How come I didn't get the call that we were going?
You know what? I'll have to fix that. Maybe it's I don't know. I was going through a tunnel, that's why. Okay, so the first question of it's okay to use NM cable outside in a conduit if you strip the jacket off, and that is false. You are not
true.
That is not true. All right, you ready for the second one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All products have to be listed. This is a simple one, I think.
You know, I think it is simple, but it's amazing how many things, or a lot of people think things have to all be listed. And again, we do have specific things that are required to be listed. But again, not all boxes are required to be listed, but we have requirements for boxes when they are required to be listed.
Yes.
And this is another one where I love the 2023 with the Annex A, what they did in the Annex A. It's not really a new annex. They cleared it up a little about what they did, but it talks about listing or products that are listed and what to do with listed products. And I don't know if you could bring that up.
Yeah,
they kind of cleaned up the title in the annex.
But here's the thing. So here's my issue. Not my issue. Annex material is not enforceable. Right?
Yeah.
It's not enforceable.
Yeah, and I guess that's the point. I guess we should always start with where we can go. So I think I would start with the 110.3.
Yes.
And I would look at 110.3 A and B as to, a general term. But if I had a specific question for a box or for some type of piece of equipment, I would go to that section. But I would probably start with 110.3.
Right, well, so there's two things. One, is there an explicit requirement for a listing? Okay. Right. So and then the second, and this is where my head goes. My first thought process was, is it required to be listed? So if I went, for example, if I'm going to install a circuit breaker, right? I'm going to install a circuit breaker. I would go to Article 240 because it's an
240.
overcurrent protective device. I would immediately go to 240 and I would look at Part 1 general requirements. And I would look through there to see in the general requirements if there are general requirements that all overcurrent protective devices need to be listed. And I don't see anything in Part 1. So for the 2023 code. So then I would go to the part that deals with just circuit breakers. Part 3 is enclosures. Part 4 is disconnecting. Part 5 is plug fuses. Part 6 is cartridge fuses. Part 7 is circuit breakers. Then I would see method of operation indicating. I have marking, interrupting voltage. I have application series ratings, tested combinations, arc
I
energy
think they're
reduction.
While you're there, Tom, do me a favor. Take a look at in the beginning. It might be new into 23, 240.7.
Oh, okay, but that's part 1. I skipped part 1. I said I didn't see anything
Yeah, take a look at part
in
1.
part 1. So let's go back to part 1, 240. Part 1, you had scope, you got reconditioned equipment, you have other articles, protection of conductors, you have the small conductors, you have protection of flexible cords.
It's somewhere around 240.7, I believe. 240.6, 240.7 into 23. Again, I get the additions confused.
Yeah, you got standard ampere ratings. And then you've got, there's 2. Am I missing a page?
I don't know. You got 240.6.7 in there somewhere?
Yeah, I'm missing a page. Hold on.
See, your book's too used.
Here it is. I found it. See, that's why I didn't find it. So you got to stick it back in again. Oops. So 240.7 is listing requirement and is in the general requirement.
There it is.
There it is. And it says, the following shall be listed: branch circuit, overcurrent protective devices, relays, and circuit breakers, and then ground fault. Now, here's the issue. You got to go back to 240 scope.
Yes.
Because the scope is critical. And it says parts 1 through 7 of this article provide the general requirements for overcurrent protection and overcurrent protective devices not more than 1,000 volts. So that listing requirement is for products not more than 1,000 volts.
Right.
Okay. So now,
yeah, I'll tell you what. A lot of the answers, I think, and I think you'll agree, is a lot of the questions that I get, and probably that you get, and again, I've heard other people say this, are either the definitions, because if we can't define it, we can't find it, and then when we do find it, in the scope of the article, to make sure that it's covered. So definitions are key, and the scopes are key to figure out where we need to go, and then once we get there, does this apply?
That's exactly right. And then, now, this doesn't apply to medium voltage breakers or fuses. So that means, and if I look at the 2020 code book, okay, that section, and look at this, I got 2 pages clear.
Do you want me to send you a book, Tom? I'll send you a book.
Gosh, do you use your books?
Look, yes, I do.
Man, I'm telling you, Mr. Mikloiche, look at this. I got my 2020 edition is so used it just fell apart. So, and
look, I tell you, I have different books for different things. I've got books everywhere here.
All right, and my same page came out. So I don't have a 240.7 in earlier editions. So this is a good example, Tim. This is a really good example because it tells you that your standard circuit breakers and fuses, low voltage, that we use every day of the week, twice on Sunday, are not required to be listed. Right?
Well, 240.7 applies to those, no?
But in the 2020 edition, if you're on the
Oh,
2020
right,
edition,
right.
they're not required to be listed. It wasn't until 2023. Think
Yeah.
about it. Hold on. Hold on. Where's it at? Here it is. Look, I got my 1947 edition of the code book. Okay, and I know I have the original code book around here somewhere, but there was ever since the introduction of this book, I've never had a requirement that an overcurrent device needed to be listed. So how
Right.
do we
Yeah,
survive? How did we survive? Now,
yeah.
here's the thing, Tim. When it's not listed and let's go back in time to 2020 and you're an electrical inspector and you go out on a job site and you see circuit breakers, you have to, and you went right to where I would go also, 110.3.
Yeah,
110.3.
I'd probably also go to 90.7 maybe first, and then 110.3. So 90.7 should be in the 2023. I think it's examination of equipment.
Yes. 90.7. So remember, we're backing up in time. We're going to the 2020 edition, which I believe 90.7 had the exact same title back then too.
I believe
90.7,
so.
yep, examination of equipment for safety. So you as an AHJ are required for specific items of equipment and materials referred to in this code, examinations for safety made under standard conditions provide a basis for approval where the record is made generally available through that big word promulgation or by organizations, blah, blah, blah. This avoids the necessity. It is the intent of this code that factory installed internal. But okay, so first you have to examine for safety. Now you see a circuit breaker.
Right.
How do you have to look at that breaker and examine it for safety. Then you go to 110.3, right?
Yes.
110.3 says examination, identification, installation, use, and listing of equipment. 110.3a, you are the AHJ. In judging equipment, consideration shall be evaluated. Suitability for the installation. How do you know that that circuit breaker is suitable for the? You can't open it up and look at the inside,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, once you open the breaker, forget it. So you're not going to do that. Mechanical strength and durability. How do you know the circuit breaker has mechanical strength and durability? You don't. So,
It's no, you don't. That's the difficult part. Is thank God for 240.7, right?
and that's the issue. So even without 240.7, even without it, and this is my opinion, what an AHJ would typically do, tell me if I'm wrong, if you see a listing mark, then you know it has been evaluated per third-party considerations for performance. So the strength, the mechanical strength, the durability, the wire bending space. So if it's a panel board and you see it's listed, as long as it's being applied within its listing, you know that it's going to have the proper wire bending space for normal applications. Right. It's when you get out of that normal. You know the electrical insulation is good. And so you, by looking at the listing mark, can basically say, thank God I didn't have to open that puppy up and try to figure out, is it durable or, all that jazz. So even without a listing requirement, you're still in many cases probably going to be looking for a listing mark. And if there's not a listing mark on it, what does an AHJ do?
I mean, like Dave Engelhardt brings a great point. You look up for the standard. You find the standard for how overcurrent devices are manufactured, and you can go to that. You can start there. I mean, that's helpful for sure.
What is this guy? Nothing else to lose. For the love of God, build a motor generator that can be solar powered, that'll run and produce the energy needed for a house, design the circuit, design the motor, get it out there for everybody. All right, you got nothing else to lose. Just get her done.
Get her done.
Get her done. All right, so to David Englehart's perspective, isn't there a standard list that overcurrent devices are manufactured? Yes. So what we would do, and you said it earlier, we would go to Informative Annex A, right? Yeah. We would go to the back of the book, go to Informative Annex A, and we would look at the article. We'd look for Article 240, and we would see that molded case circuit breakers, molded case switches, and molded case and circuit breaker enclosures are listed to UL 489. So you would be looking for a listing mark. You could go to the, it used to be the white book, but now I think it's product spec or product IQ.
Yeah, I believe so.
Product IQ.
Where's your little thing that Mike Hofkin gave you?
It's
Didn't
over
you get
there.
a little product IQ?
It's over there. I know. You know what I have to do is I've got to figure out a way to hang it behind me again.
Yeah.
So you would go to Product IQ, and that would give you what you need to know for the proper application of that device. And to David Englehart's point, but again, it's how you approve it. Right. So put it this way. Okay, let's do a different product. Let's say, for example, that I buy a Hoffman enclosure. I put a terminal block in there. Okay. And then I put a current limiting fuse. And I land on the current limiting fuse, and I take from the fuse, and I go to the terminal block, and I go from the terminal block, and I go to two pieces of equipment. That enclosure that has the terminal block that came out of Tom's garage, you need to approve, right? So the first thing you're going to do is say, what is it? You're going to have to figure out what it is. Yeah. Is it an industrial control panel? Whatever it is, right? Once you identify what it is, then you've got to go to the article. If it's an industrial control panel, you're going to go to Chapter 4, which I think it's 409. Is 409 industrial control panels? I believe so, yeah. So you go to 409, and then you would see if industrial control panels are required to be listed. If they're required to be listed and Tom's Garage didn't list it, then boom, it's rejected, right? But if it's not required to be listed, now you have to approve it.
Well, and that's it. And Lauren brings up a point. So if you have your book open there, Tom, the annex, the title to Annex A 1A, read what that says. That's for products that are listed. How does that? What's the exact verbiage there?
Well, Informative Annex A is product safety standards. And you said A1A?
Yeah, the first there's A1A and A1B.
I'm in the 2020 code, and it just
2023. Go to 2023 because it's new. Oh, that's the thing. Yeah, get out of the 2020. Yeah. Throw that book. There's only 4 pages left in it. Throw that book away.
You ain't right. Okay, so A1. Okay, yeah. In the 2023 code, they made a bunch of changes to this.
Yeah.
A1A.
Absolutely. These are really they're helpful changes. The title is helpful.
Here's the title: Product Safety Standards for Conductors and Equipment that have an associated listing requirement. And then A1B. Perfect. You know what?
It's just as important.
I just noticed that. I just learned something. You know that? Laurel, thank you. A1B is product safety standards for conductors and equipment that do not have an associated listing requirement. And if I look in A1A and I go to 240, I'll see molded case circuit breakers. 489.
So again, I'm glad. You know what, Tom? We're getting great comments and great input, and I'm feeling good because sometimes when we do this, I get like, but we're going to talk about things that nobody's heard of. But just by the comments, David and Laurel and Felix and Joe, they're on the same page, right? So we're I love this. This is great. Even though it's an annex, A1A, A1B, 245 is for over 1,000 volts. Yeah, we're getting great feedback. So this is what it's all about for me. This is why I love doing this, especially with you. It's fun.
Oh, this is awesome. And Felix, one example is conduit is not required to be listed. I didn't know that. Why would? Okay, so now here's a good one. Conduit. Let's say you're going to put conduit outside direct burial. Isn't there a requirement that it has to be listed for use in direct burial? I mean, don't you have to have some sort of?
There is, and we actually there is. I think I don't know. We put a note to the table 300.5. We put a note in the table that references that section because it was a little confusing.
What panel are you on?
I think it's 358 is EMT. What's that?
What panel are you on?
Oh, panel 3.
You're on panel.
So Article 300 is one of ours. I'm going to flip through here because I think we did it in the 2023. We put a note to the bottom of the table to cover that because we just wanted it to be clear.
And which?
Yeah, there you go.
Where?
So on a note, it's note 6 to the table 300 300.5a. You'll see note 6. There's a reference there.
I went to 300.5a.
Yeah, page 169.
Hold on. You know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. 300.5a. I'm just going to come up here to NFPA Slink. 300. Here we go. All right. Hold on. Just hold your horses. 300.5a. There's a new table. Direct burial electric. Oh, look at this. Electrical metallic tubing shall comply with 358.10. And if I go to 358.10, uses permitted, concrete in direct burial applications with fittings identified for so this is the uses of EMT, but EMT is not required to be listed.
So why we did that? That's the thing. Why we did that was there was confusion in the table that it appears that you could just put regular EMT in the ground, and we didn't want that appearance. So we put that note 6 in to direct you, the code user, to Article 358 and Section 358.10 to say, hey, if you're putting it in the ground, it's not going to be regular EMT. It's going to be something that's going to be suitable. So okay. I think that was helpful. And again, I'm okay with a little extra ink in the book if it makes it more useful and for usability.
Help me.
So I think that was helpful.
Hold on. Help me. I'm just a boy from West Bygone, Virginia, trying to understand this now. It says uses permitted. The use of EMT shall be permitted for exposed and concealed work in concrete in contact with the earth, in direct burial applications with fittings. So the EMT itself, EMT, electrical, what's the M stand for?
Metallic tubing.
Electrical metallic.
Tom, look what just happened to me.
I told you.
I made the club.
I love it.
Come on.
I love it. That is so perfect.
Do I need this page? What is this page?
What is it? Hold it up. Hold it up. What is it? Let's see it. What is it?
It's TC cable. Tray cable. Article 336. I don't need this, right?
No, throw it away. Get rid of it.
Good.
Yeah. If it falls out, that means it's not required. So there's nothing in here that says, so EMT, how do I identify if it's EMT? I mean, it's not required to be listed. So if I went and if I grabbed a metal tubing, any metal tubing, how do you know it's EMT? It has to be marked.
Well, so you're going to see 358. You see 358.6 in Article 358. 358.6. That's not the parallel numbering system. We go from .6 to .7, but 358.6. So EMT is one of the ones that is required to be listed.
Okay, no, wait a second. So
358.6, I think.
Felix said conduit is not required to be listed. does it depend on what conduit? Because he used the term conduit. Conduit could be
Yeah, not a
EMT. It
tubing.
could be anything, right?
Yeah, maybe go to IRC or IMC.
IMC.
Yeah,
Where's that?
intermediate metal conduit.
What article?
Oh, you had to ask me that.
Yeah. Do you know
It's not one I
anybody on?
use a lot.
Do you know anybody on panel 3 that might know that answer? Oh, IMC
Hey, we don't
is
have
required to
conduit
be
type.
listed. IMC is required to be listed.
There you go.
So what I would say, Felix,
You know what?
you want to be a little bit more specific on which raceway is not required to be listed, because EMT is, IMC is. Now, there might be another raceway that's not required to be listed, but that is one of those examples where you say, you've got to look at what it is. Like if it's EMT, you go to the chapter for EMT, you see if it's required to be listed. If it's required to be listed as the HJ, you need to look and make sure that whatever EMT they purchased and installed is listed. Then you look at what the requirements are and where you can use it, uses permitted and not permitted, and make sure you're applying it within its uses. But not all product is required in the code to be listed.
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
so
And you know what, Tom? It might be easier to go. It might be easier to go to Annex A1B to see what's not required to be listed, to see if there's any conduits in there that aren't required to be listed. That might be easier.
I never thought about that. You know what? That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
A1B, A1B, A1A, A1B is, and you have the marking. Oh boy, 334.
There might be something in there.
Electrical rigid metal conduit. Electrical rigid metal conduit in 334 is not required to be listed.
334.
Wait a second. Article 334.
Can't be 334.
I know, that's what it says.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check my book now. Maybe that means 344?
Take a look. I don't know what I'm smoking. 334. That's RMC, right? That's 344.
Yeah, it should be.
That's it's
Yeah,
wrong.
that's what I'm
in the
thinking.
book.
344 maybe.
It's wrong in the book.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 770-756.
Okay.
And it says RMC, factory elbows and couplings and associated fittings shall be listed. So why is it in table A1B when RMC says it's required to be listed? It's right here.
We might have found something there, Tom.
I think we found a mistook. The panel 3. I don't know if you know anybody from panel 3, but it looks like they didn't.
No, we don't
do
have.
what they were
We don't have
supposed to do.
conduit. We have Article 300.
Oh, you don't have raceway. Is it panel 7?
Oh, we only have Article.
No.
You know what? The shift in panels,
6.
I'm not even sure.
It's probably 6. I've got to this is bugging me. I got to center you. I got to center you. There you go. All right. Yeah.
Am I moving or are you moving me?
I just moved you because over here I moved you. So don't worry about it. All right. So 344 rigid metal conduit has to be listed, and they have the wrong article, 334. I don't know. UL6 is for rigid metal conduit. That's what it has. UL6, electrical rigid metal conduit, RMC, which is 340 Article 344. So it shouldn't be an A1B.
I tell you what, we we could save that for another day. We can go in to see maybe if there was a TIA maybe, or something changed, or we missed something, or.
You know what I'm going to do? Here's what you do. You come in here with a pen. I have a red. I had a red pen here. No. Dadgummit. Forget it. I always mark this stuff when I find it because these are public inputs and public comments. But I'll remember this one.
You know what? I'll make a note. I'll send you. I'll shoot you a text after this.
There we go. Shoot me a text. I'll have my person call your person. Okay.
There we go.
So we know that not all products are required to be listed, and we know that Laurel, don't forget to give the thumbs up. Come on.
Yes.
Make it happen. Okay, so all products have to be listed. Want to do another one? Let's do one more. What do you think?
Okay. Let's do it.
Do one more. Hold on. And you know what I'm going to do is I have to.
Well, I guess that we determined that one to be false, right, Tom? So not all products need to be listed.
That is correct. Not all products have to be listed. Now the next one. Here we go. Conductors in a conduit underground don't need a ribbon to indicate presence.
Yes. So this is an interesting one. This is, hey, I know a guy on panel 3. This is a panel 3 one, Tom.
Okay, make it happen. Number 2.
All right. So I don't know if you can bring up the language, because this was an interesting one that was brought up that was actually a 2023 change. And the confusion is, and again, it's always good to, if you're running a feeder, right? Definitions are key. What's a service conductor? What's a feeder conductor? What's a branch service conductor? We have to understand what we have. So the question that comes up typically is, does a feeder going to a separate structure require a warning ribbon? And so the thing about the feeder is, when we get into 300.5 and 300.5D, that's where the requirement for warning ribbon is.
Okay, so 300. Chapter 3 is wiring methods and materials. Article 300 is general requirements for wiring methods and materials. 300.5 is underground installations. And D is protection from damage. So that makes sense. Let's throw this one up on the
now, can you bring that up? Can people see that? You guys can see that. I just can't, right? You can see it?
They can see it.
Okay, cool. All right, so D3. Do you have D3 up there?
I do. Service conductor.
So again, it's key to figure out.
D as in David?
Yes, D, correct, yes.
3. Got it up.
D as in David, 3. So the first point is that section, or the requirement for the warning ribbon, applies to service conductors, right? It's great to put it over feeders. It's great to put it over branch circuits, but it is required for service conductors. So if you can go back to 300.5D, the main language,
yep.
What you should see in the 2023 is, you'll see it starts with conductors. Now, I don't know if you can bring up to 2020, Tom, or if you look into 2020, if people are following along and they look in their 2020.
Put it this way. I have NFPA
It was a small.
link. I have NFPA link.
Perfect.
And NFPA link lets you do stuff like that, which everybody out there should have a copy of NFPA link. I'm going to go to the 2020 edition, 300. What?
300.5D.
D.
Yep.
There it is.
So far we've determined that this section, or the requirements for warning ribbon, apply to service conductors, right? Not feeder conductors, branch circuit conductors. It's a great idea. It applies to service conductors. When you bring up to 2020, what you'll see in that 300.5D, the charging text to D3, you'll see it said direct buried conductors and cables, right?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yep.
So what happened for the 2023 is, there was a concern, and again, this has been since the history of this section, and it's right. In the 2020 or in previous editions of the code, the warning ribbon ribbon requirement was only required when we had direct buried cables or conductors. It wasn't required for cables or conductors that are inside a conduit, tubing, or raceway.
Oh,
And that was a big it was a big conversation. We're like, wait, what do you mean? Wait a minute. So the little change, and again, the hazard was the same. So what we were discussing at the panel, and again, I'm like you, Tom. I'm discussing I'm not speaking for the panel or anything. I'm just as a person involved. This is
yeah.
what I took away from it. So the concern that we had was if it only applied to direct buried conductors or cables, well, I'm typically putting this stuff in PVC in the ground. I'm going to have a backhoe or something. I'm worried about all conductors. So what we did for the 2023 might seem like a minor change, but it changed how you apply this rule. We took out direct buried, and now 300.5D and D3 specifically apply to conductors or cables, whether they're direct buried or in a conduit, tubing, or raceway.
Right. So now
So
it
that
just
was
says conductors and cables shall be protected from damage. And then,
right.
well, hold on. It says conductors and cables shall be protected from damage. But where? Oh, direct buried conductors and cables. Well, where's the mark? Where's the marking requirement? Oh, that's for
It's in
service.
D3.
That's for underground service conductors that are not encased in concrete that are buried 18 inches or more below grade shall have their location identified by a warning ribbon. But because the charging statement said direct buried conductors and cables, you're saying that service conductors that were in raceway would not have had that. You could make the argument.
Correct.
Earlier.
Correct.
Let me ask you.
That's the public input that came in. It said that. It said, listen, if I have conductors that are in a raceway, well, they're not direct buried, so this section doesn't apply. And it was a great point. And again, that's the part about the code where the individual words are key. And we addressed it by just taking out direct buried, and now it applies to all conductors, direct buried or in a cable, conduit, or raceway.
So in your experience, did you ever come across when they had service conductors buried in raceway that they did not have the location identified by a warning ribbon?
It's funny. I didn't. And I think that's one of the things that we thought the code required it, so everybody just did it.
Yep.
But if you ran into something, and again, a lot of the things that we do as electricians, we do over, right? The code is the standard, but we do what we do, and it takes that one thing to look back and say, wow, you know what? Technically, that's correct. So no, I hadn't, and I really didn't think it was an issue until I read it a couple times, and then I saw the point, and I said, wow, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? That's one of those things when, and I can't remember. I love this discussion. In 230, in Article 230, when I look at Article 230, you know what, you got, this is not a this is somewhat of a tangent off of answering this ribbon cable, but I want to build off of what you just said. The question, and maybe this is another, well, let me ask you, do you count the PV service disconnect for a PV disconnect? Do you count it as one of the 6 or don't you? So, I know
I'd
we
have
don't
to go into,
count.
what is it, 230? Right, 230.82 is where that comes from, right? 230.82?
Yeah, we don't count it, and it says, now everybody goes to 230.82.
Yeah.
But 230.82 has nothing to do with whether or not you count it as one of the 6. The only thing that 230.82 tells you is what can be placed on the line side of the service disconnect. It doesn't tell you whether or not it's counted as one of the 6. So I've had people say, oh, 230.82 tells me I don't have to count it as one of the 6. And I go, well, no, it doesn't. 230.82 only tells you what you can put on the supply side of the service disconnect. So then you have to say, well, where in the book does it tell me not to count it as one of the 6. So then I go to 230, what is it, .90?
90, yeah. Yeah.
Such protection shall be provided for, that's for the overcurrent. 90, where is
You know what? I have my book right here.
Yeah, take a look at the book, because
again,
it's not 90. It's
I think I know what it is, but I want to look it up before I say it, because I don't like to whip, especially with being in so many different versions. I don't like to just
230.71 is the maximum number of disconnects. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm headed now.
Okay, so if you look at 230.71,
Yeah,
it
there it
says,
is.
for the purpose of this section, disconnecting means installed as part of listed equipment and used solely for the following shall not be considered a service disconnecting means, and that is in there so that you don't count it as one of the 6. But photovoltaics is not in there. You got power monitoring, you got surge, you have control circuit of the ground fault protection system, and you have power operable service disconnecting means. Okay, so that means that the disconnect for the PV system is not one of those. So then you have the 2 to 6. There's an exception for separate enclosures. There's an exception for transfer switches. This is the 2 to 6 disconnecting means.
Yeah.
So where is the section that tells you you don't have to count the PV disconnect as one of the required 6? It's not 230.86 or 82.
82. No, it's not.
Okay, now David Engelhardt says go look at 230.2, number of services. This only tells you that you can have an additional service to an optional standby system, to a legally required system, to an emergency system. It doesn't tell you you don't count it as one of the 6. Well, maybe
I'm looking. I shifted over to 705, Tom, but I don't know.
but no, you can't go to 705 because 705
I know.
has yeah.
I just as I'm reading this, I'm like, that's a good one for another night. We'll have to like look at that one and see.
I would love to explore that a lot more in the 2023 and earlier codes to say what section would you reference to not count the PV disconnect as one of the 6.
What am I thinking about? That changed in the 2026, right? Didn't they add that? Where did they add that?
I tried to.
I remember
I tried to modify 230 to fix that issue.
Okay.
Some of it made it through, and then some of it didn't. And when you look at the convoluted mess, it's still screwed up, in my opinion.
Okay.
But if I tap off, if I have one service, and I tap into the line side to the service entrance conductors, I tap off of that, which I'm permitted. 230.40 tells me that I can bring an additional set of service entrance conductors to a PV system. But where do I reference? Yeah, a separate, Freddie B says a separate service would restart the count. But what I'm talking about is when I tap into the service entrance conductors, I come into the line side, I tap off of that, I go to my PV disconnect, I go to my inverter, and I go to a PV system. Where does it say that I don't count that as one of the 6? I believe you do count it as one of the 6, but I don't know that we do.
I think that's a good one to take a look at, because that whole the PV and the 250.25 change and what do we call those conductors and all that. That's got a lot of love to say, like you said, that's gotten a lot of love the last couple cycles.
It sure has.
So
it sure has.
I think it does need a little more, but yeah, that's one we should definitely add to the list. And I'm making myself a note for that one.
Make a note for that one. That'll be one of our future programs. So
yeah, we still have like 4 or 5 left. We didn't even get through.
I know, but that's okay because the dialogue and the chats were unbelievable. those chats, I tell you what, I'm fired up. I'm fired up. Get fired up. Woo. I'm telling you, this is good stuff. I did make an intro for our program. And I want you to I made an intro. You're not going to be able to see it though. Hold on. I am going to shocking truth. I call it a stinger. And you know what I'm going to do is I don't know if I can. I've got to figure out how to do the stinger. I got to figure out how to do the stinger. I think I have to add a video, but Jason Doty, thanks for joining in. David Englehart, Freddie B,
Cool.
Fred, Joe Ballard.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, and you know what, Tom? We're doing a couple more of these too, so this is going to be good. So we'll have some material for the next time to cover. We have some stuff to add. So
I said it earlier that we're not going to have a fixed schedule, but we'll throw these up. And I talked to Paola down at the IO. I've got to give her advanced warning. I let her know this morning that we were doing this. So we didn't get good marketing for this first one, but she's going to market it and send it out and give advanced notice for our next. What did I call it? What did you call it?
Shocking truth.
The shocking truth. Yes. All right. Eli, thank you for joining in. Jason Doty, Fred B, David Englehart, Joe Ballard, Felix Sandoval, Laurel from Omaha. Nothing else to lose. Thanks for joining in. Steve Spiker, Joe Ballard. I'm just looking through some of the names. Jason Doty, Felix Sandoval, all these great guys. Thank you for joining in. And I am going to play the outro, which is up on this screen, and hopefully everybody hears the audio. And we're going to sign off. What do you think?
All right, pal. Sounds good.
Thank you for joining me, and I appreciate you stepping up to the plate and sharing your knowledge.
Hey, I learned more from you, Tom.
Oh, no, baby. Tim Mikloiche. All right, here we go. I'm signing off, everybody. See if this works.
Did it work?